Yo, what's up, y'all? This is Fat Man Scoop, the undisputed voice of the club, the 2-time Grammy Award winner. Let me make this official for you. Fat Man Scoop, Crooklyn Clan, Internets. It's time to go with my dude, Premium Pete. Let's get focused. Let's go. Internets. Let's turn up. One time. Premium Pete.
Come on, everybody get set. Let's go. It's the next episode. It's the Premium Pete Show. News, interviews, all of the info. Listen up. It's the Premium Pete Show. If you want the scoop in the low, down low, listen to the show, cause Milk said so. Fuck what you heard, better act like you know. It's the Premium Pete Show.
Internets, welcome back to another episode of the Premium Pete Show. Sitting down, let me tell you something, this is a long time coming. I said to myself, starting the Premium Pete Show a couple of years ago, I said, and I even told him, I'm like, yo, how could I be 30, 40, 100, 150, 200 episodes in and not had this gentleman on the show? The episode that we did, rest in peace to our brother Combat Jack, Reggie Osei, was phenomenal. And when I look at him, I look at this guy as so much just a director, just a game changer, an entrepreneur before that was even cool to even say that shit. And really, to be honest with you, it's funny how you say Uncle Ralph McDaniels, but honestly, like kind of like an uncle of hip hop, man. You know, when you think about it. Ralph, listen, welcome to the Premium Pete Show.
Yo, thank you, Pete, man. Glad to be here, man.
Man, we were talking off air, and I was like, damn, man, like, I thought about the last time we did an episode, and there's certain guests that I'm like, man, like even Ice-T, you know, me and Reg, you know, just being there with him and doing that episode, and it was so tremendous. And when I did it again, I went to Ice's house. Ice was like, "Yo, let's do this. Let's do an episode." And it was phenomenal. But I was like, "Damn, man!" It's like it reminds me so much of Reg. Certain people, certain people, because some episodes were powerful, and at that time, you know, it was a new space. I guess what I'm saying is, I always use this line: if you tell Ice-T or you today, like, yo, I want you to do a podcast. But yeah, a lot of people ask me to do a podcast. Mm-hmm. Back then, I remember them saying, like, oh, and it wasn't that long ago where people were like, well,
yeah.
You know,
well, the internet moves fast, bro. So you guys were way, and you're always ahead. You know, that's what I love about you. You know, anytime I meet you, I look and I think about, like, Pete's thinking of some new shit. We gotta fuck with Pete, like, whatever it is. You know,
and especially just to know of how you've been able to, you know, even I don't want to say reinvent yourself. I'd rather just say evolve.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about it, 30, you know, when that episode when we did was 30 years that you were celebrating 30 years of Video Music Box.
We're at 35 now.
Okay.
That's 5 years ago.
And you think about just like how important, you know, there's something that you said before in that episode. I remember you saying that people, like, there's a lot of people that you broke. There's a lot of people that you put on.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember somebody telling you that later on in your life, man, you're supposed to say that back then.
Right.
We live in a world, like, that's the thing that's crazy to me, too, where people want to wait till someone passes away to be like, oh, this motherfucker was this motherfucker was that, he was a great guy, he was this, that, man. Say that shit. How many people have you come across that appreciated you and what you have done, honestly? Because they should.
I think percentage-wise, let's put it like that, of all of the people that, you know, and it's hundreds, you know, it's maybe 10%, you know, that really, you know, like, you know, honestly, you know, when they didn't have shit going on, you know, and you know that little moment that you gave them an opportunity, and it was all out of love. It's not like, you know, like sometimes I said, damn, do people think I was getting paid maybe by a record company or something like that? Then that's why I did it. You know, I was like, nah, record companies wasn't paying me like that, you know, because, you know, that was happening. You know, you could get a check, you know, like, yo, have this guy on, we're going to give you whatever, you know, $1,000 or whatever it was. You know, it wasn't radio. I worked in TV. I worked in music videos. So it was nobody understood that. You know, it was something new. So at the same time, just like this platform, when you first started, you know, we're trying to prove, like, we're, you know, we can make things happen.
Sure.
You know, people are going to see the artist. So yeah, so a lot of times, you know, things happened, and that was the big change for numerous artists, and then it just happened, and then nobody ever said, hey, you know, thanks, or you might have did a little show or something out of it, you know, yo, come through, I'm having a party, man, you know, get on stage, you know. So that was the, you know, for me, like, okay, so we'll do that, and that's really what I've kept over the years is this incredible archive of those
Barry?
artists for the first time. Because nobody came back and said, "Yo, man, we're gonna do something with you." There were some artists, like I like Wu-Tang. RZA was like, "Yo, Ralph, I got this thing, protect your neck. We shot a video for it. It's not out. We're not signed to a label, and here's the music." And I'm like, "All right, no problem." But I know him from his past stuff that he did in the GZA. Then now was the Genius when I first worked with the Genius, and then I played it and I said, "This is crazy right here, protect you. Like, what is this?" And he's like, "Yo," and he goes into the whole concept of what Wu-Tang is all about. And I said, "Yo, it's dope. I like it. It's new. We'll play it." And then a week later or 2 weeks later, Steve Rifkin calls me, and I knew Steve Rifkin. I met him with Ice-T. He was a promotion guy. He didn't have Loud Records at the time. And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "It's dope." I would just say that anyway, even if it was whack. I would say it was dope. And so Steve Rifkin goes, "I'm starting a new label, and I'm thinking about signing him." I said, "Yeah, you should sign him." And I said, just let me know what's going on. And then next thing I knew, it was a 12-inch record, and it had Loud Records on it. And I was like, "What's Loud?" And that was Steve Rifkin's label.
With the headphones.
Yeah. And so then, it was like RZA comes back and says, "Yo, we're going to do a video for this song called C.R.E.A.M. Listen to it." And I said, "All right." And he said, "I want you to direct it." Because he directed a bunch of, R&B and a bunch of stuff around that time. And so that's when he came back with it. And that to me was like, that didn't normally happen, where an artist, you worked with them and then they came back to you and said, "Hey, can let me put some money in your pocket." And that's how it wasn't like crazy money to them. It was, at the time, but we knew this was something special. And I've worked with RZA on numerous things over the years, and to this day, like I'll call RZA and he'll pick up the phone. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
And you never know when you're doing it. You never know, who's going to be there 20 years later, 25 years later,
right.
30 years later. When you direct, it's funny because I feel like there are a lot of people. Let me tell you something. For people who know you, I hope that we could spread some things that they could learn more. And people who don't know you need to know of you because let me tell you, I was just telling you off air that I was taping the Italian guy Fiorio Giunta, who played from Sopranos, and I told him, and here's the correlation. I used to run home to watch Sopranos live. I had to be at live. I was like, "Yo, 8:58.
That's right.
Yo, don't call me. Don't bother me when the Sopranos is on. I gotta watch this shit." Now back it up a little bit. I did the same thing for Video Music Box.
Wow.
It was that important. And it's not only me, there's a lot of people that was their go-to. They had to get home.
Yeah.
It put you on to things, man. It put you on to see videos. And it's crazy. This is before MTV.
Yeah.
Before, and here's another crazy, and I'll let you talk to it. But people back then thought hip-hop was a fad.
Yeah.
Wasn't going to last long. I even remember you saying that there was radio stations, particularly even black radio stations.
Absolutely.
That were like, "Yo, we ain't playing this hip-hop shit up here."
That's right.
And
some of those guys still exist in the background. They doing something up there. I don't know what they doing.
Yo, but you were the one that were like, "Nah, fuck that." And you believed in what it could be. And look where the fuck we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think that, it was going to be like what it is, but I knew it was something big. I'm come from before hip hop, so I watched certain movements, and I could tell by the energy that there was something more to this. Like people don't know. Like I'm a house music head.
Sure.
Like people go like, "How's that possible?" I'm like, even house heads don't believe it. And I'm like, "Nah, I was at these spots. I know those spots. Like I used to go because I just used to like to hear different frequencies of music. like different whatever it was, something different. Rock and roll. I went to CBGBs. I've been there before. I went to these punk rock spots. Because punk rock and hip hop were just stepchilds of the music business at the same time. We didn't get along necessarily with punk rockers, but we was put in the same category. Like, who are these dumb, idiots running around with their hair, with the mohawks, and people, used to treat them like that. And then they would look at us like, "Look at these idiots right here, with their chains and all of this." It was the same kind of look, but I found something in every type of music. So, like even today, like some of my old heads will be like, "Yo, this music is whack." But I hear things that are important, and I'm like,
"Sure.
If you're a 16-year-old, what that kid just said means something. That shit is real important right to him right now. So you got to think about when you're 16. You can't think about it now if you're 50 years old. Look at it from his perspective. And I'm a diehard music fan. That's at the end of the day.
It's crazy to think of the radio stations like, nah, man, get the fuck out of here with that shit.
And it was black people. That was what was fucked up.
What were you saying to them at that time?
No, this is happening. Just come to the club. All I want you to do is come to the club and see what the kids are reacting to. And watch when these records come on in comparison to these records. And not saying that they're not reacting to these R&B smooth records or dance records or whatever they were at the time in the 80s. But watch what happens when these records come on, these Melly Mel records and Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5 and Curtis Blow records and this is the early 80s. And and it was like, okay. And even at that time, hip hop records sounded more like R&B records. That was like there was a rhythm and and a bass line and shit like that. I remember when Russell first gave me It's Like That in the Way It Is. And I was like, so where's the bass line? And he was like, nah, we ain't doing that shit. No more bass line, straight beat, And then he added the guitars, eventually. So it was just a different experience, but you had to go to it. And even now, like I remember having a conversation with DJ Clark Kent,
Shouts to Clark Kent.
Exactly. And I said, yo, man, I got these young dudes around my way, and these dudes be, acting like I'm a sucker, And he was like, and he was like, well, you got to talk their language. So I was like, what do you mean? I'm way older than them. How am I talking their language? He said, you got to go and hang out where they want to hang out and then talk that shit that they go like, oh, shit, he knows what we're dealing with. And I said, okay. And it worked. Like these young dudes that lived across the street from me, I all of a sudden started talking about certain artists or certain shit that they were into, not trying to impress them, but just said it,
Sure.
And they were like, the whole perspective on me changed, like they knew that I was into what they were into. And then Clark said, then you have to go to where they're at. So I'm like, all right, I could do that. I ain't hanging out all night, but, and I went to these events and I got it, and that's what I tell people. If you want to understand what young energy is all about and why they do what they do, you have to go there and be in that environment. Sure. To get it. You can't look at it from your perspective. You have to look at it from their perspective. And that's why, I think that I still got fresh ears and I can hear things.
Somebody like Clark Kent, when you mention him, it's funny because he did something so dope for Video Music Box, was create that Air Force One.
Yeah.
And, apparently it was only like 20.
He said
something.
Apparently. That's what I said.
You never know with Clark.
I learned.
He may have 513 stacked. He's always got a fresh pair of something.
Exactly.
But just the way it looks, the box that rocks, which was the slogan.
Yeah.
Put on the side, the inside showing like what I
it was like a barcode.
Barcode, like
a TV.
TV.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did the Video Music Box Air Force happen?
We were talking about something, and just like normal conversations. Clark and I are like the Brooklyn representatives.
Absolutely.
And we would go to Manhattan, and we were not from uptown. We were not from the Bronx. We were from Brooklyn, so it was a different kind of experience. And so we would just kind of hang together just in case some shit jumped off. And and he'd be playing music. I just go hang out with him in the DJ booth, and I was doing my Video Music Box thing. And anyway, we had that connection. And I think that he mentioned to me, I knew he was doing the sneaker thing, and I don't know if it was I brought it up or he brought it up and about doing a sneaker.
Sure.
And so whatever the case was, he was like, okay, it has to be like this. And then he's a professional about, no, dude, it has to be the era. It has to fit when you were out, 83. We might have mentioned, oh, let's do a Rod Laver. Like, nah.
Yeah.
Air Force One, definitely, and then he broke down certain things and was very specific about it. And when he came back with it, I was blown away. I had no idea. I didn't, until he brought it to me that day. It was already finished. I didn't have no say-so on it or anything. Which, you know, and I tell him, you know, like, Clark, whatever you tell me when it comes to sneakers, I believe. You're God to me when it comes to sneakers.
Absolutely.
He's like, oh, don't put that much pressure on me. I said, because I don't know.
Sure.
You know, I don't know. You know, you tell me how to, you know, make a video or a movie or something like that. Yeah, I can have some input on it. But when it comes to sneakers, believe Clark Kent, whatever he says.
Absolutely. You know, one thing I don't want to jump over is when we spoke about directing the video for C.R.E.A.M, for Wu-Tang.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, it's like the reason why I'm saying we can't run over that, because that shit is you think about it. I mean, you've done a lot of things. I don't think people even realize sometimes, like, how much stuff you've done. Like, to direct the video for C.R.E.A.M, like walk us through that day, like how that even happened and just that video.
Well, when we shot that in Stapleton and in Park Hill in Staten Island.
Thorough.
And, yeah, you know, thorough. This is like early 90s, of course. And you know the era, you know the vibes at that particular time. And so, you know, and it was cold. It might have been like December or whatever it was. It was -20, I remember, when we shot the video, which was terrible for then because the equipment freezes up and all kind of other stuff happens when you're doing that. And you know, Wu, they, you know, if you're in Stapleton, whoever lived in Stapleton at the time or whoever lived in Park Hill, because they're you know, they're kind of spread out between the two projects, you know, they would just, you know, it was too cold. So they would go like to a friend's apartment, like, well, okay, we're switching scenes or we're doing a lighting change. And they would just go hang out. And we never knew where they were at. Like, you know, somebody go find them, you know, where's Meth at? You know, where's Ray? You know, where's Deck? You know, and they would, you would just have to kind of like, you know, it was almost like knocking on doors or listening to the door, like, oh, I think they're in here. I hear a lot of noise in here. And they would come back out. Okay, we're ready. And they put their hoodies back on and everything, get dressed up and come back out and do the scene. And I wanted to make sure that it reflected, that video, when I directed it, that it reflected what I saw. Because to me, Wu-Tang, Nas, that whole little era right there was actually what was happening. Like, it wasn't like we were making this up. This is what, you know, camouflage and hoodies and Timbs, you know, like that was really what people were wearing on the street, and that was what it was. Almost like how Run DMC when they came out, you know, and they wore Lees, and you know, and
Sure.
it was authentic. It wasn't like a stylist, you know,
Sure.
or anything like that. They were actually looked like what guys you saw in the corner. And when I say guys on the corner, the dudes, it's the crack era, you know, and it was happening, and it was happening in a big way, and people were making a lot of money. And they looked like those guys, you know, and that is, you know, that doesn't happen all the time, you know, and I wanted to make sure that we documented that in the video so it looked like that. So, you know, guys, you know, with the furs and in Times Square, we shot part of it in Harlem, you know, Willie Burgers is in the background. That's like a Harlem, like, you know, spot that, you know, everybody in Harlem knew about. And, you know, so that people in different areas outside of Staten Island could understand, because not everybody got Wu-Tang at first, you know, when it first came, especially black people. They was like, what are they talking about? What? Shaolin? What's going on? You know, like, it was totally different.
The forgotten land.
Yeah, it was, but the lingo was different from what was happening. You know, before that, you know, it wasn't that, you know, and so people were like, these dudes are, you know, they're not really, what is this? You know, and it took a minute to warm up, but street cats got it, and people that were, you know, into the, you know, hip hop got it, you know, real hip hop heads got it. And eventually it just kind of was a wave, you know, that just took over, and you saw it in the clubs, and you saw how people reacted to the records, because those were, to me, like nomads, you know, like Wu-Tang, you know, like they were just like, they weren't the normal guys. It was like almost the first time I saw a B-boy, you know, a B-boy was like, he's not from around here. I don't know where he came from. I don't know what this dude is, but this was a different dude, and they traveled in different places. Like he might have been from, you know, from Newark, but he was in the Bronx and he was in Queens, and you saw him at certain events, and you knew he was a unique dude. And that's how Wu-Tang was. They were unique dudes, and they were 5%ers, you know, and it was the, you know, the language happening, and you know, you said, these guys are different, and they look at the world different, and that's what I liked about them, because I looked at the world different than most of my friends.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
How did you direct so many different characters, so to speak? You know?
I don't think it was that hard. You know, it was like everything I do is like a mix. I started out as a DJ, you know, in the parks, you know, in clubs and bars and stuff like that. So everything is a mix. So I would look at, you know, Raekwon, and I'd look at Meth, and I'd look at Dirty, and I'm going, okay, so how do we mash this together in different scenes that it's about their, you know, who they are, and that it's going to mix and flow and have some kind of flow to it. And I remember I shot that video, and, you know, and everybody just, it was so cool that people were like, whatever you want to do, Ralph, like whatever you say. And when I shot the video, we shot that in film back then. And so I transferred it, and then I went right to the edit spot, and I didn't come out, and it was like maybe like 12 hours later I was done. You know, it was like if we shot it on a Saturday, by Monday, RZA had the rough cut of the video.
What was his first response?
And he loved it. You know, he loved. There was no changes. I can't remember any changes that we had, and that's very rare. You know, when you do something that somebody says, "Oh, I don't like that shot. I don't like that shot."
Yeah.
Oh, it's not flattering to me. I don't like that. You know, but I was so, you know, in tune with who they were that I was like, I got it. I know exactly how this is going to work, and it was like, you know, a perfect shot to the edit, and then boom. And then, you know, I couldn't wait to play, because I just couldn't wait to play it on Video Music Box, because now the song is starting to get hot in the clubs, in the street, and on the radio. Not like crazy on the radio, but it's playing, you know. And I'm like, I gotta play this on Video Music Box, because this is gonna be crazy. So I couldn't wait. And that was the thing, like people, and I didn't realize it, that I had all these videos that I shot, and I played them so early on Video Music Box because I directed them.
Sure.
That people were like, yo, the first time I saw it was on Video Music Box, and I was like, right. But I realized I had it way ahead of the record company even officially putting it out, and they were like, Ralph's playing it already? Like, you know,
Like,
like
you're playing your own content.
right? Like, this is not fair. You know, like, how is he so ahead of us? And I you know, and I did that all through even the Yo MTV Raps era. I was like, I got the hottest video. They don't have it yet. I just directed it. So I'm going to play this for at least a month before they get their MTV version of it edited, and you can't show this, you can't show that. I'm showing.
You had the exclusive.
Right. And you know what? Things that we used to put in videos, and you see in videos, certain content or certain things that were said, you can't do that now, because it's way, you can't say these things. You'll get in serious trouble, you know, with whoever, the internet police, you know, somebody will find it, you know. And so, you know, it's so, you know, I have to, like now, if I play it on my show, which the show still comes on, I'm like, I can't believe we used to, like Beat Nuts, a Reign of the Tech, you know, and like they're sniffing coke in the basement of in the scene, you know. I'm like, we used to play this on Video Music Box? Like, I can't.
It was that thorough. It was that real. Listen, another video that you directed, It Ain't Hard to Tell.
Yeah.
By the one and only Nas.
Nasty Nas.
How the fuck did that happen?
We did a bunch of videos. My partner and I, Lionel Martin, Lionel directed all the videos for most of them, for Third Base. And so.
Get the gas face.
Exactly, we did that.
You know, Combat is in that.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, you got to look back. For those I know, some people don't. Remember when they pulled the wig off?
Right.
That was
That's
Combat.
Combat?
Yeah. Wow. You got to look back.
So we do the video, you know, we're doing all these videos, and then Search comes and says, you know, you heard about Nasty Nas, right? And I kind of like, I don't know, I heard something. He's like, this kid from Queensbridge, he's dope, you know, I'm trying to get him a deal. And I was like, all right. And, you know, eventually time goes by, and then somebody, man, the woman that used to work at Def Jam, and she's going to kill me because I'm not remembering her name right now. She's the A&R at Sony. And she calls me and she says, Ralph, you know, Nas wants to meet you. We got this guy named Nas. He wants to talk with you about doing his EPK, back then, electronic press kit. And it's like a little short little film about, you know, what's coming, what the album's going to be. And he says, well, so we're going to get the producers together, and we're going to get Nas together, and we'll go to Sony Studios. Sony Studios on 50-something Street back then. And we go there, and everybody's there. Premier's there, Q-Tip's there, LES, Pete Rock, somebody else, I can't remember, somebody big.
Large Profess.
Large, right? My man, of course, the guy who I know I see all the time. And so we go in the studio. First I have a conversation with Nas about it. And I said, well, what do you want it to look like? You know, because you could do this a couple of ways. He says, I want it to look like Video Music Box. That's all I watch. So he says, this is how you do Video Music Box, you know, when you be interviewing people and shit. So I said, all right, no problem. And so we go, boom, easy, no problem. I do this every day. And we did. We shot it like we did Video Music Box. And we had some lights, and we did all the interviews. And the thing came out so thorough that Sony was like, look, Ralph, we got a song that we're going to release like in 2 weeks. It Ain't Hard to Tell. It's really the first single off the album. And, we need to do a video for it like right away. Would you be interested? I said, all right. And they sent it to me. Nas is not like big like that yet. This is like, I know that he's got all the elements there because, now I've heard the whole album because I've been hanging out with these guys and they played all the songs. And I said, yeah, no problem. And so we shot this video for, damn near nothing. And, they just wanted something to test the waters with Nas. Like, let's see how this goes. They knew New York was on it. That much they knew. Let's see how the rest of the world reacts to this. It's a video. Now the nation's going to see it. It's going to play on Yo MTV Raps and BET and all these other places. And we shot the video, and we didn't shoot it in Manhattan. I mean, we didn't shoot it in Queensbridge. We shot it in Brooklyn and Manhattan. And because the bridge was just hot at the time, there was some, they were like a little nervous about something could jump off in the bridge. Yeah, sure. So like, look, let's just stay out of that, and we'll shoot it over here. And that's how it happened. And then It Ain't Hard to. And then they wanted to. I had heard The World Is Yours, and I loved that song, the Pete Rock joint. And I was like, I want to do that video. And they were like, yeah, we're gonna get to you. And then it was like a bigger budget, And I never got to do it. I was pissed. I always wanted to do The World Is Yours. I'm greedy, but I got to do It Ain't Hard to Tell, and I did the EPK, and that was the beginning of. One of my favorite rappers in the world and friends, a good guy, Nas.
Nasty Nas.
Yeah.
Even when you take it back a little, you think about the classic shit that you did, Symphony,
Oh, yeah.
With Marley Marl.
Marley Marl.
With Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah.
Craig G.
G-Rap.
G-Rap. Who else?
Master Ace.
Master Ace. I mean, yeah. Let me tell you something, man. I love the beginning of that one. I don't care who's first or who's last. But even like I remember the first time seeing that video, it was a saloon.
Yeah.
And it was like and the crazy thing is I know that the whole Kane story.
Right.
Break down the Symphony, man. How that happened.
The Symphony, that in the beginning, in the intro you're talking about, there's like a piano kind of thing happening, and it's a beat underneath it. And Marley made that beat up just for that video. It didn't that's not in anything else. It's not on the album or anything like that. And so he did that. We had done a bunch of Cold Chillin' stuff, big up Cold Chillin' records, and we were working. And my partner Lionel was like, I want to do this in a dude ranch in upstate New York. And so it was like, fine. So we how are we going to move all of these different crews, up to upstate New York? So we treated it like it was, like they used to have bus rides, to like, different places in New York or in New Jersey. So let's make it like it's a bus ride. So we just got like one of these buses, these chartered buses, and we got everybody on the chartered bus. And we went up to upstate New York, and we went to the locations, and we had, did a location scout. We knew the different places that we were going to shoot at in the Dude Ranch. And Dude Ranches were places like I think I don't know if it was like who owns this place? Like rich Jewish people own these sure. lands upstate New York, and they would go up there to just kind of like in the summertime to have, their families come up there. And it was kind of like, no, people are not going up there as much. So just it was kind of, falling apart. But the land still existed, but we were like, this is perfect. This looks like, sure. we're in the Wild Wild West sure. somewhere. You don't have to do nothing. You don't have to fix nothing up or nothing. It hadn't been opened in months, perfect. It looks like exactly where we want to be. And we went up there and we did what we did. And then this incident happened with Kane on the way up, and somebody got shot. Not intentionally. And the guy said, I think it was Kane that did. And so we said, well, okay, that's going to be a problem, because he was bleeding. But he was riding on the bus for a while. He didn't realize it because he had like a big coat. Sure. And we were like, okay. So he's like, well, do you want to go to the doctor? So he's like, yeah. So we're like, okay, that's going to be a problem.
That's going to be a police report.
Right, it's going to be a police report. So, it was like, okay, Kane, he's got to take him to the hospital. And so he was like, all right. So it was like, Kane didn't, because it wasn't like it happened purposely.
Sure.
And so, but they were like, that's going to be a problem because then the police are going to come. So then everybody's like, oh. So it's like, okay, so Kane left, went back to Brooklyn.
Sent him back, right?
Yeah.
How did he get back?
I think one of his homeboys drove, you know, and he went back to Brooklyn. We finished shooting the whole scene. If you watch the video, Kane's not at the Dude Ranch. So Lionel, the genius that Lionel is, like, so I said, well, what are we going to do with Kane? You know, like, well, we're going to do his part. So Kane says, Lionel says, well, we're going to make it look like it's a movie and Kane is watching it and he's in like a screening room of watching a movie. So I said, so that's what it is in the video. That's the concept in the end. You see Kane and he turns around, he does his part, but he's like in a screening room watching G-Rap, Master Ace, Craig G do their part, you know, and that's how it all came about.
Yeah, put a quarter in your ass because you played yourself. You know, you think about, you know, it's funny because I think about you were there for so much of the beginning stuff, and you're still fucking here. You know, I think about like what brands do now. Like I remember seeing you wear FUBU.
Yeah.
On fucking Video Music Box.
First time.
And you think, I don't know if people like realize like that. The world we live in today, people die for placement. You know what I mean? Like, and did you ever speak to? You're cool with what's his name?
Damon.
Damon, right?
Yeah.
Did he know how much that done for the streets? Or anything? I mean, that initial part, you know?
I think he realized it pretty quickly because it happened really fast, you know, and it was like FUBU, and you know, like first it was just like Lobo. Nobody knew what it meant, and then I had him on my show and. You know, and it was like, well, what does that mean? And it was like, for us, by us. And nobody had ever said that before. You know, so it resonated because they were black. It resonated in the black community, but it resonated in just hip-hop community because, you know, they were part of it. They were, you know, some dudes selling shirts in Jamaica in Coliseum Mall. You know, they come from a place where there was these dudes named the Shirt Kings before them. That were spray painting, you know, shit, you know, and people airbrushing shit, and you know, now it was a logo, you know, it was stitched, you know, like it was the next level shit, you know, from the Shirt Kings, and they were out there in the street, same area where the Shirt Kings were, and in fact, that's probably why they went there because they knew that that's where the Shirt Kings jumped off at, you know, and so this is where the crowd is at, you know, if we can get any of this crowd buying our shit, then we're good. And I think that he realized it really quick, and it all happened really fast, I think, for them. And, you know, and it was like, okay, we gotta, you know, we don't have enough money to manufacture this stuff. And Damon tell his story about how, you know, he was, you know, that we gotta get another mortgage on the crib and all that kind of stuff because it was happening, you know, and it was happening fast. And it's crazy, you know, I think it's 25 years of FUBU. Yeah. And they just relaunched in, you know, in Century 21. And, you know, and it's, you know, I'm glad to be there. You know, I know them from day one, all four of the guys. And, you know, it's like a rock group, you know, they're a group, you know, you know, because it's like your guys still together, you know, that's cool.
You know, it's funny seeing that. Even like I said, they came out with the Puma, they came back and relaunched it. People, you know, it's just powerful. You know, let's take it back for a second. You think about Video Music Box, 35 years. For people listening who have no idea about Video Music Box, like, do you remember the day that, well, of course you remember, but I mean, take us back to the day, like, where it was going to become a fucking thing, like, where you were going to go live and they're going to be like, all right.
The Fresh Fest. When we aired the Fresh Fest in 1985, we had already been doing the show for 2 years. But I knew from the magnitude, the Fresh Fest was a concert, and it was a tour, and it happened here in New York at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island. And it was Grandmaster Flash, the Furious Five, LL was an opening act on it, Run DMC, the Fat Boys, and Houdini, and the Dynamic Breakers, and some other people. And so when we were there, it was a mixture of what hip-hop was. You know, it wasn't just black people from Hollis, where Run DMC was, or black people from Harlem. It was white kids, Asian kids, Latin kids. You know, it was hip-hop, you know, and that's when you realized that what this was. We all had the same thing in common. It was a different experience than I had gotten when I was in the Bronx. It was a different experience than I got when I was in, you know, in Queens, in Jamaica. You know, it was like, oh, this kid knows all the words. He looks like us. He's dressed like us. He's not black, but he's got it, and we're connecting, you know. And that's when you realize that this was a movement, you know, and that moment when we taped it, and we weren't, and I remember talking with Russell, like, yo, I want to tape the concert, and he was like, all right, speak to Leor. Leor's gonna, you know, get that to happen. And Leor was like the road manager for Run DMC, and you know, and he was kind of in charge of the tour. And I said, Leor, you know, Russell said, you know, blah 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 blah, we can tape the show, and he was like, oh, okay. Then he came back and said, Ralph, look, I don't know if this is gonna happen because Nassau Coliseum is gonna charge us some money for this. And I was like, all right, but we're already in the venue, you know. So he's like, just stay right here. Don't do anything. Don't start shooting it because I don't want to get a fine. So of
Don't
course,
fucking do it.
right, exactly. You know, but he's young. You know, so he's, you know, Leo was hip hop. He was, you know, he's dusted. You know, not dusted.
Yeah, nah.
But
sure.
he's, you know, he's moving like us. And so, you know, we go, we're not gonna stand here. Music starts, the concert starts, people are yelling. I'm like, let's just go, start taping. It's dark. Nobody's gonna know we're taping. Just don't turn on the light on the camera. And so we just started shooting. And like maybe an hour later, Leo comes back, or I see him, and he goes, oh, okay, it's okay to shoot. I said, we've been shooting. To myself, I said, oh, thank you. You know, so I'm to myself, I'm like, we've been shooting, man. And I'm glad that we did that because we captured this day, which is monumental, you know, in hip hop. Like all of these groups, which is, you know, became, you know, what the tour looked like for hip hop. Sure. You know, it didn't really exist like that, you know. And what's crazy is that certain brands were down with it. Sprite was down with it at that time. Like they knew, you know, this is happening. And everybody that, you know, there was a, you know, you started to see other people emerge, like the publicists, you know, there was a publicist. There was, you know, all these different people that behind the scenes that you saw starting to get jobs. And that's why, you know, we knew it was going to be a big deal. And then we aired it like immediately, you know, like I was like, I gotta get this on TV. Like we shot it on a Sunday, Thursday I had it on TV, and it was like the whole world saw that show. You know, people were like, yo, that was crazy. And we ran it twice, you know, let's run it again. People want to see it again. And I remember years later, Fab Five Freddy telling me like, yo, man, I knew that it was happening when I saw that show, you know, that it was happening. Like, it was real. Like, I was, you know, stuck watching that show. It was like an hour of no video. Oh, we played a couple of videos in that show, but it was more live performances. And that was it. You know, that was, you know, I think there's going to be a documentary on that, on that Fresh Fest moment. You know, I think that's going to happen, yeah.
And so I'm sure you'll be involved in it.
Yeah, we've been talking with some of the guys that are thinking about doing it. You know, I'm involved with the Wu-Tang thing too. Mike's and Men that's coming on.
Okay,
Showtime.
yeah, that's right. That's short. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a 6-part series. Like that,
I think it's 4. Yeah, I think it's 4. And I'm
that's dope.
Yeah, I worked on that. Some of my content in that, and they interviewed me for that. There's, you know, like a lot of these documentaries. If I feel it, you know, like I like to know who the directors are, you know, who's doing this, you know, like where's it coming from? And sometimes, you know, it's not coming from a, you know, it's just, you know, we're gonna make money off of this, and you could tell it's that kind of vibe. You know, I think that's why certain documentaries you know, like Stretch and Bobbito's, you loved them because you felt it. You know what I'm saying? You know, it was like, because Bob did it, you know, he was sitting there going through everything, you know, and he was gonna make sure that it comes out the right way. I'm going to do mine, you know, and I'm going to probably have to do the same thing. I hate going back and talking because I'm always thinking forward.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like people go, oh, tell us the story of that, you know, what was happening here? I'm like, okay, I don't remember, but I got a couple of guys like my man Crazy Sam. He pops up and told me, nah, man, that's not how it happened. You dumbass, you don't remember? And I'm like, what happened? He's there, and he'll tell me exactly why we did what we did. Or my man Beast, and you know they'll tell me exactly why we were doing what we were doing.
Well, I mean, you have so many stories. What story was I feel like there was a story of somebody stole your car.
Oh yeah,
you know, remember that story?
Dude stole my car. Me and my wife went to the movies. We came back home, and I had a parking lot. I lived in Brooklyn in Flatbush, and we had a parking lot, you know, a parking space under the building, and it was weird because the garage door was open that day, and it's not normally open, and I was saying, something's wrong with the garage door again. And so I go in, and I'm pulling in my wife's car, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, I thought I parked my car in here. And then I said, maybe I parked it on the street. And I look on the ground, I see glass, and I'm like, oh shit, I think somebody took my car, my Jeep. It was a Cherokee or something like that. And so I said, okay, you know, like, how did they come in here and do that? Like, why? Who would do that? You know, it's not like it was on the street. It was in the parking garage. And So I go up in my apartment, you know, I'm like, okay, what we gonna do? So I rode around the car like, yeah, you're gonna see somebody driving your Jeep, you know. But we just did it just to do it. And then this guy called my house and said, do you have a Jeep Cherokee? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you Ralph McDaniels? And I said, yeah. He says, I have your Jeep. And I was like,
what the fuck?
right, you know, like, how are you supposed to react to that?
Yeah.
You know, like, oh shit, I'm getting ready to get kidnapped or some shit. You know, we was hot for a minute. You know, like this. I don't know how hot. Are we that hot that we gonna get kidnapped? But I don't know. So I said, all right, where you at? Look, can't call the cops. Can't do this. Can't do that. Can't do this. I said, all right, no problem. He said, meet me on Utica and somewhere.
What the fuck?
Right, in Brooklyn. So I said, all right, no problem, man. We're going to be over there in a little while. So I told my wife. So my wife's like, all right. So I said, look, stay here. She said, I'm not staying here. They might come here and try to get me. So I put my wife, we go in the car. I go get my boy Beast and another dude, rest in peace, my man Handsome. And I said, yo, get the shit. And y'all just stay behind me, you know. And, you know, they're thorough. They're from Brooklyn, you know.
Ready to thump.
Let me just roll up and see how this looks, you know, and I'll stay in the street, you know, so people can see me. So I pull up where they said, and I'm standing in the middle of the street. I don't see nobody. It's like one of these blocks in Brooklyn where I never probably went through. I was like, I don't even remember this block. Like, who lives over here? And so I'm over there, and this guy's sitting on the stoop, and I'm standing there for a little while. And then I go back to the car, I'm talking to my wife, and come back outside. So the guy who was sitting there for a long time goes, yo, Ralph. And I'm like, hey, he said, I'm the person who called you. So I said, okay, what's up? So he says, yo, your Jeep is over here, it's around the corner. And then he starts talking to me. He says, look, these dudes be robbing stuff, and they bring it to me, and then I give them money for it. You know, but then I realized when they bought your stuff to me, I'm looking through the bag, and I see video music box stuff in here. And I'm like, nah, we can't rob Ralph McDaniels. This is our dude. We got to give him back his shit. You know, she said, them niggas is mad at me right now, but fuck it. Your Jeep is around the corner. And you could take it now. So he gave me a garbage bag with all my stuff that these dudes had taken out of my Jeep. You know, back then you had the speakers and all that kind of stuff, the big, you know, boombox speaker in the back and all this stuff. And he gave me back my Jeep, and I drove off.
Did he ever pay for the window? Didn't they break the...
Nah, he ain't paid for shit. I was ready, because it was a dark-ass block. And, you know, and I was like, yo... anything could still happen until I got in my car and was driving away.
Sure. Then you were like, oh, I feel like you were freezing.
Right. You know. So and dude and I are friends now.
Really?
Yeah. I see him in the clubs in Brooklyn. Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. You know what? Let's take a quick break. Internet. So let me tell you something, man. By that last story, you could just tell the understanding of the respect of the movement, of the lifestyle, of the content of video music about the one and only, the legendary Ralph McDaniels in the building. We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Cheer.
Hey, this Ice-T. Right now, you're locked into the Premium Pete Show. #1 show on earth. All right? Stop playing.
We back sitting here with Ralph McDaniels talking about Roxanne's, Roxanne on Netflix, man. Just a whole show. You know, internet. Go back and listen to the Roxanne episode. With the one and only Roxanne Shante.
My girl.
Please believe it.
That's right. Please believe it.
You know, when did you get, you got pulled in late into that or in the beginning of that?
I was pulled in. They had already come up with a script. And Mimi Valdez, who's the executive producer on it, was like, give me a call and said, hey, you know, what do you think about, you know, we're working on possibly doing a movie for Shantae, a Roxanne movie. And I was like, oh, that's my girl. You know, I did her first video. She said, I know you did her first video. That's why I'm calling you. And, you know, I saw it on, you know, as a kid, young Mimi watched it on Video Music Box, and she saw the interviews. And she says, like, I feel like, you know, you should be part of this when we're making this movie. And I said, okay, absolutely, I'm down. And so, you know, she sent me some of the script, and, you know, and I was like, all right, fine. And it was happening, you know, it was literally, you know, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks later we were shooting, and, you know, I did some consulting, like what equipment should be, you know, in the background. And I got my boys, the Disco Twins from Queens, who were doing the sound systems out there in the park back then. And I got them involved. So some local Queens guys, which was kind of cool to get them involved from the 80s. They didn't make no records and nothing like that, but they were just known for their sound. And wardrobe stuff, you know, looking at certain things. because I was a visual guy, and my partner Lionel and I did Roxanne's video, the original video for that. You know, if you go listen to it on YouTube, it's like me talking over it because it was taped from Video Music Box. And so yeah, so that was it, you know, and it was involved, you know, I wasn't even there when Nia Long did her part. I was there for Mashallah Ali, his part, and it was you know, like I'm like, oh, he's a star, like he's a real, like you could tell somebody's like a real actor, like he's like, let me do it one more time, you know, like it was just to take the take and just do it. He wanted to do it again because he felt like he could hit,
he could do it better.
He could do it better. So I was like, oh, and then, you know, after the movie comes out, you know, a couple of months later, he gets his first Oscar, and you're like, oh wow, this dude is Oscar winning. And then he again here in 2019, he wins another Oscar, you know, and you're like, he's got 2 Oscars, this dude, you know, for Best Supporting Actor. So, good guy, you know, you don't meet people like that all the time, you know. He's like really focused. It's like when we did Juice, that was the first movie I ever worked on, Juice, and I was associate producer, and Tupac came from L.A. to New York, and he was the only person that they had on as a character that they had already booked. And they were like, look, we got Tupac Shakur. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. But he was serious, like compared to the other actors that were in it, you know, like you had some guys that eventually became big, but he was serious about it because he said, look, man, I came all the way from LA to New York. We got to take this shit seriously, man. And we get into big arguments, not almost fights, on the set of Juice because he felt like some of the other guys were not taking it as serious as he was. And so, you know, when you get these things, you don't know what's going to happen. We don't know that Juice is going to be a cult movie that's going to be forever, you know. Sure. You know, in the case of Shantae, you know, that's one of the most rewatched movies on Netflix last year. You know, like people watched it again, you know, diehard hip hop, you know, people, oh, you should have had this, you should have had this. I was like, yeah, you know. But, you know, the vision of Mimi and Pharrell is to give you a different look on something that, you know, you maybe weren't looking at all. Who was thinking about doing a Roxanne movie anyway? Sure. You know, and so it's good, you know, and I think that opens the door because it did well for other stories to come. So I look forward to doing more stuff with that.
I mean, when you think about it, like, you know, there's so many stories that could be told.
Yeah.
You know?
And they're serious business, you know, like you've probably been through some things in your life. You're like, I could do a movie. Yeah. You know, look, shit, if Howard Stern could do one back then. Like,
Private Parts.
Right, you know, why not?
It's fucking crazy when you think about it. Look, you know, let's take it even back. When you grew up, and you grew up in Brooklyn.
Did I just refer to you as Howard Stern?
I know, no.
Sorry.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Well, maybe the nose may be like that. But he got a Jewish nose, I got an Italian nose.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. What, you know, when you think about, you know, your childhood, and I mean this with you because you're such a pure-hearted person, such a talented person, such a person that, I don't know, you know, it's like you don't go around asking for people to pat you on the fucking back. You know what I mean? And you just do work. And a lot of again, I'm telling you, I feel like a lot of people, not meaning from this show, but a lot of people I don't think understand how much you have contributed. I mean, yeah, Video Music Box, but I'm talking about even more.
Yeah, even more. Yeah.
You know, but you look at it like growing up, like to being a kid in Brooklyn to now, like and I mean this like wholeheartedly, but like, is this what you envisioned? Do you envision that you would be a person that directed so many different things that you know held the flag to be like, yo, this hip hop shit is more than, you know what I mean, just some fad to be like a big piece of the puzzle of this shit. Did you envision that?
No, I didn't envision it. I just knew that when I was the thing that got me into this business was, first of all, my uncle used to go and buy 45s. He would come from a record store and he would come and he would buy 45s, and I couldn't wait to open his bag and say, can I check out the 45s? And I would read everything on the record, like where it was recorded at, what state, what studio they used, who was the engineer, who mixed it, all this stuff. So I was taking in all this information as a little kid, like 6 years old. Then my uncle took me to Reese Beach in Brooklyn, and there was a jam, and there was DJs outside. Like, I'd never seen that before. Like, I didn't know that even existed. And there was this guy named Grandmaster Flowers. And Grandmaster Flowers had, like, tons of records, and it was outside, and there was like a basketball game going on, and all these women, and my uncle, you know, like that was his hangout spot. You know, in the summertime they would have these jams, and I was like, this is crazy. These dudes are playing records that they like, and people are reacting to them, and I want to do that one day in some way. And that's how I got into the DJing thing, you know. So I was like, I have to buy speakers and I have to do all of this stuff, and eventually had my own little team. And that's how me and Lionel got together, my partner, the Vid Kid, eventually. And I just wanted to just play music and people just react to it and say, like, oh, that was a good song. That was a good choice. Sure. That was a good choice. Like a playlist, you know, now. You know, like, that was a good choice.
Crazy when you think about it like that.
That's all I wanted to do. Yeah, that's all I wanted to do. Everything else that came along with it, the film stuff, the music videos, Video Music Box. Video Music Box was just another way of playing music and see if people were going to react to it. You know, I play weird-ass shit. People who really watch video music, they're like, what the hell was that? Like, we play Aha, Take On Me. Like, what were we playing that for? You know, but the visuals on that was so crazy to me that it was groundbreaking that I was like, oh, this is dope. You know,
Hall & Oates.
Hall & Oates. I mean, Hall & Oates is different because they kind of like were, you know, established, you know, way. But, you know,
there was a lot
things,
of other things I remember that were played on Video Music Box.
Yeah, you know, we just played it, you know, because we were like, this is something, you know. I don't know if it's something that everybody's going to be, you know, like I'll talk to like guys like Chuck Chill Out, and he was like, we never played that on the radio. I said, yeah, but we made it big on, you know, on you know, like you know, like Main Source, Large Professor, you know, like that, we played that like. And then I got the chance to work with him, and that was one of the first videos that Hype did with us, was Hanging Out.
Hype Williams.
Yeah, Hype Williams. You know, he did Hanging Out. They wanted me to do it, but if you look at the video, there's all this kind of nostalgic clips in there. Those are all from Video Music Box and Hanging Out. They wanted me to do it, and they were like, you have to be involved. We don't know who this guy Hype is. And I was like, it's going to be fine. You know, Hype will try to claim like, you know, like, yo, nah, I was the one. I'm like, dude, trust me. I used to talk to the owner of the label at that time. I can't remember the label right now. And there was another guy named Mark Weinstein who was an advocate for me all the time. And he's like, Ralph, you sure about this guy Hype? I'm like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. He's dope. Don't worry.
Mm. You know, it's so funny, full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Complex Con,
yeah.
Last year, I run into you. I'm with Steve LaBelle.
Yeah.
Shouts to Steve LaBelle. Shouts to Sean Kingston.
Hollis, Queens. What's up?
You know, I turn around and we then I think we're like, I went to a panel or whatever. Anyway, to make a long story short,
Steve Stout and a bunch of people.
I wound up taking a picture.
That was an ill moment because Jaden.
Yo, how about this? After the panel was over, I walked to the stage, and you know, I see a couple people, you know, that I knew, and they're like, "Yo, Premium P, man, come over here, come over here." So I'm walking, and I literally almost tripped on like a chair or a wire, and I landed right next to Jaden Smith.
Right.
And literally, it was so smooth. He was like, "Yo, what's up?" And instead of being like, "Yo, like you good?" Like, I just put my hand out, like, "Yo, what's up?" And he's like, "Yo, what's up?" And kept it moving. It was smooth because I always thought I was gonna bust my ass. And then you're over here talking to him.
Saved you.
And you're over there. You're over there talking to him, telling him about his mom.
Right.
Yo, that shit was like, and then Hype Williams comes, and I take a picture. What a full circle moment for you.
Yeah.
Meaning where Hype started from.
Yeah.
Explain to the interns who may not know, like, you know, of this full circle moment.
Well, Hype was a young guy, you know, production assistant, intern, whatever you want to call it. And we brought him on when we started doing music videos. And, you know, he wanted to be down with us. He was with the art department, like, you know, because back then we would build sets. Now, you know, you could do a green screen. You know, now it's like, oh, we don't have to build it. We can actually.
Sure.
But back then we would build sets and do all kinds of stuff and paint, you know, a room or a house a different color and all kinds of stuff like that. And he was part of that crew. And you know, one day he came to me and he probably, you know, he would come to me. He would come to this producer that we had, Sabrina Gray. He would go to Lionel. I want to direct, right? And we're like, all right, you know, we'll see what's gonna happen, you know. And eventually, I gave him a video. It was called "Duck the Boys in Blue." The artist is, I can't remember the artist right now, but the name of the song is called "Duck the Boys in Blue," and that was Hype's first video. And once again, another situation where they want me to do it, and I'm like, nah, I got this dude named Hype. I think it'll be dope. And so, you know, the whole idea of Hype directing is now it's happening, and he's happy, you know, and I could tell like he's got some new ideas. And we wanted to develop new people, me, myself, Lionel. And Hype always clashed, you know, about things. And Hype was also a dude that would, you know, he was always go over budget, you know, like, yo, no, you can't shoot anymore. We spent all the money. And that was Lionel's biggest thing. And I'm like, I got it, you know. Hype, you just gotta chill, man. When, you know, we're not trying to stop you from being creative, man. Just you can't spend my money. You could spend your money if you wanted. You don't want to get paid for this job, but that's fine. So eventually, you know, as Hype started to do more stuff, we said you should have your own company, because we were our own company. We were Classic Concept Production, and Hype then eventually started his own company, and he started shooting his own stuff. And he used to edit in my place. I had a place on Broadway, and he would edit there. And then eventually he became like kind of like a one-man show. He'd shoot and edit. But that was the beginning of Hype getting started. And, you know, I used to drive him he lived on Linden Boulevard in Queens, like right down the block from Tribe Called Quest, from Q-Tip and them guys. And I think he was on 190-something street, and that's where 192nd in Linden is where Phife Dawg, rest in peace, and Q-Tip come from. And Hype was right down the block. And then, you know, a few blocks over was Irv Gotti, and a few blocks down, you know, was the FUBU, Damon and them guys. So it was like a circle of this new group coming up, you know, in the 90s. You know, they watched what we were doing in the 80s, and these creative guys out of Queens, you know. And I always say Queens is a little different because, you know, you had a backyard. You could sit back there and kind of figure shit out, you know, for a while, you know. And I think that he's just a product of that, you know. Like, he was a guy that, you know, he spray painted. He was a graffiti dude. You know, he wanted to just do things, and he took that creativeness with the paint and, you know, just put it into the camera and shots and angles, you know, because that was Hype's thing, you know, out of focus, in focus, different angles, you know, that we hadn't seen in some of the music videos before Hype came around.
Were you surprised when he was getting these type of budgets to do these videos?
That blew me away. I couldn't believe that, you know, there were videos that, you know, $1 million budgets like Missy and Busta and all that stuff. I was like, I don't even understand, how is this happening? When did this happen? We were happy to get $50,000 back then, or $10,000 when we first started. He was getting $1 million budgets. So I'm like, yo, I gotta go work for Hype, man. What the hell's going on here?
Now, when's the last time you seen him? Is that the first time you seen him in a long time?
I haven't seen Hype since me and you, when you took the picture in maybe like 25, 30 years.
Fuck.
Yeah. You know, and what was funny was that, you know, they were talking, him and Steve Stout, and they were up talking about whatever they were, you know, working on, or whatever the story was. Oh, it was the anniversary of Belly. That's
Yes.
And you know, and I was looking at Hype, and I'm like, look, you got an award, you know, in my mind, I'm going, you got an award, 2 awards from MTV. You ain't never mentioned how you got your start, really. You know, from Ralph McDaniels and Lionel Martin. So say it now. So I sat literally in the front so he would see me. But Steve Stout saw me, but Hype never really kind of turned my way. So then at the end I walked up, and he was like, oh shit, this is the guy who started me, you know. But the thing was kind of like, you know, it was like a movie, that whole moment. This is right before you took the picture. Like, this is the guy who started me, but people are leaving. They've been sitting down for an hour. Nobody's listening, you know. And I'm like this, like, now you say it, you punk. And so, you know, but that's, you know, that's the way things go. Always proud of the guy, you know. That's why I asked you, Pete, can you take a picture of us, you know? And you were there, and, you know, because, you know, I'm looking around, I'm like, Pete, he understands how important
come on, man.
moments are. You know?
Come on, man. That was special. Even with what you were saying to Jaden.
Well, Jaden, you're right. About a month before that happened, what you call him, his mother, my name, Jaden's mother's passed. Jada Pinkett Smith posted up an interview from a movie that she was in. And, you know, they have like these junkets, like, you know, where you go and you interview, you know, the actors. And I went and I interviewed his mom, and she replayed that video literally a month before I saw Jaden and Hype and all of that. So when I saw Jaden there, I'm like, yo, your mom just posted up this thing. And, you know, it's like a weird thing, like your mom. Like, what is this guy about to say? Because I don't know who Jaden Smith is.
Yeah, sure.
And I started explaining. And he was like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I saw she posted it on Instagram. I said, yeah, I'm the guy with the striped shirt interviewing your mom. He was like, oh, okay. So it's like,
It's classic.
He was nice.
Yo, when you think about somebody like Jaden Smith, right, and you think about the new generation, then you take it back for a second, think about the old generation. For people listening who may not know, Latin Quarters, right? I mean, there were so many other places that you visited that hip hop was very well and alive in, but Latin Quarters, for people who never been there or even heard of it, or people out of state, like how thorough was Latin Quarters as far as the hip hop?
Oh, super thorough, because that was the one thing about Latin Quarters. First, it was in Times Square. So if an artist came from somewhere else, like, L.A. or somewhere, they could go, they usually would stay in that area.
Sure.
And a hotel, and they could go there. So, let's say it was Dr. Dre or whoever, Ice-T. They were coming from, okay, Latin Quarters popping. We could go right over here on a Sunday night. Nothing else was popping. We could go right there. The record labels were in that area. All the record labels were in that area. So the record label owners could go right there and see artists and then sign them like literally Monday, So all of this was happening. Plus, you had the top DJs. You had Red Alert there. You had Chuck Chill out there. All of these people that were part of the scene. And Latin Quarter I think it's open less than a year, maybe 2 years. That's it. It's not even a long run like some of these other clubs. But all of that happened right there in that spot, like very quickly. And Paradise Gray, he has it in his book out. And Paradise was, like the manager, and he was, booking stuff. This is before X-Clan, because Paradise is a member of X-Clan. And the thing that's crazy about the Latin Quarter is I only went there twice, because on the same night I was doing my own party in Brooklyn. So people used to be like, oh, Latin Quarter was popping last night. I'm like, oh, word? But I had another party going on in Brooklyn at the same time. Sure. But the Brooklyn crew used to terrorize Latin Quarter, like terrorize it, robbing people. Many artists got robbed up in there, man. Yeah,
it's funny, too, even thinking about Nat Robinson or Milk D. I remember people, talking about how when top billing, which you wouldn't think it was like such a, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's an anthem. It's one of the anthems of hip-hop. There's so many different anthems that we have. But I'm like, yo, like, I remember people was like, yo, you got to tuck your chain in when Top Billing came on.
Oh, no doubt, yeah. Because that beat used to hit them speakers so hard.
Yeah.
That boot, boot, boot. And it was like, ooh. It was just like a moment. There were certain songs that, that you just got scared. Something was going to happen. Like, you knew it was going to happen because you knew who was in the room. If Fort Greene is gentrification at its best right now in Brooklyn. But back then, it was Thug City, and, some of these dudes now, they may be listening to your podcast now. They know they were like, they're 50, 60 years old now. They don't care now.
Yeah.
But, it was on, and, and you could tell it was about to happen, and I would sit with Clark, and we mentioned Clark Kent earlier, and Clark was DJing a lot of those functions in Brooklyn with the same guys, but we had a relationship with these dudes. We knew these dudes. So we would see them in Manhattan. We were like, oh, here they go. They're in Manhattan now. And, many dudes got robbed, jumped, stomped out, and, it happened, and they could just jump right on the train, head back to Brooklyn from Latin Quarter.
Crazy, man. Crazy moments, man. One thing that stuck out to me over the years, I remember you used to say something about, like, back then, and not saying there's not talent now, but back then you used to be like, yo, you knew who the talented people were, especially because they were like, they would come to these clubs and rock out and actually speaking of that, I remember I'm sure some people know the story, maybe some people don't know, but about Biggie. Wasn't that your birthday party? And I remember it's funny too, because I think we live in a world like, even today in day and age, is like, I remember he was and you'll tell the story, but he was on stage, and I guess the DJ dropped the song, and he's like, "Oh,
right,
you want me to?" But didn't Puff like only want him to host it? What was the story about that?
Well, Puff, I went to Puff and I said, "Look, I need Big to come through. I want him to host my birthday." But I wanted him to perform. He's like, "All right." So, going back and forth, we don't hear nothing, and then so Puff says, "Look, man, Big's coming. He's probably not gonna perform, but he's gonna be there." So I said, "All right, no problem." So I'm like, yeah, right. Sure, he's not gonna perform. As soon as he gets here, we're gonna throw that song, and the crowd's gonna make him. You know, in the back of my mind, I said, no problem, of course. You know, and so Big is there, and he's on stage, and Jay is there.
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z. So this is Jay-Z. You know, like I know Jay-Z really well. I've been playing his stuff. I've been playing his stuff from his collaborations with Jazzo.
Yeah.
And you know, and Jay's, you know, he's you could see something's happening. You know, Rockefeller. You know, something's going on. And so Big gets up there, and of course, you know, I had DJ Ace, who's, you know, DJ Ace is the DJ that was also at the club playing when the night that Big was killed in LA. So Ace was a big deal, you know. And so Ace, I said, look, we're gonna give you the sign, you drop that Get Money, and we're gonna get Big to do his verse, because Get Money was out, Junior Mafia's out now at the time. And it's hot, it's super hot, you know. All we needed was to have Little Kim there, but she wasn't there, you know. And so, boom, he drops it, and the Big just turns around and looks at me like, you got me. You know, like, you got that. He goes, I guess I'm supposed to do my verse now, right? And so Jay goes, yeah, go ahead. So Jay and Big do it together. They kind of like collabed on that one right there.
It's funny how you think about how Big was Big was really the star at that time. You know, like Jay wasn't what you know he is today, or you know. Like,
I mean, you knew Jay-Z was good.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't no doubt about that. But, you know, it wasn't quite there yet, you know. But he was, and he was doing his own thing. He had his, you know, he didn't take the route where, you know, he didn't, like, Bad Boy was just, that promotion was crazy at the time. You know, Puff was a genius at that. You know, still to this day, you know, he still has that, you know, that he does it with the liquor and whatever else he's promoting. Nobody had that, you know, and, you know, even though Jay and you know and them would, you know, they were just, you know, it was great music, but it didn't have the promotion. If you didn't have, you know, you could have, you know, there are artists that came out like Nas was on a major label, but there were artists that were out that just could have been just as big as Nas, but they weren't, you know, because the promotion that Nas had, that and then the buzz, and it just built up into this big deal. So,
do you remember how many times you came across Jay, like, you know, over the years? You know, is that someone who appreciates video music?
Yeah. You know, last time I saw Jay was at Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival. He came out with Jay Electronica.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and that was a few years back. But you could tell, like, you know, he's coming into the venue. He's not dolo, but, you know, security's kind of off to the side. And, like, as soon as my eyes and we connect, it's like, okay, I know Ralph. This is my man, you know. And we sat there and, you know, and kicked it for a while. And you know, and I think that he gets it. You know, like, I feel like, you know, Jay understands the importance of culture and, you know, and preserving certain things. Like one of my biggest things right now is like, you know, I have all this content, you know, and some of it is not even digitized, you know, it's 35 years of stuff. And I'm like, how am I going to get, you know, like, I could spend the rest of my life doing this, just digitizing.
Yeah, sure.
You know? And so, you know, and I'm like, you know, maybe you should go to Jay, ask Jay about it. So, you know, we've kind of touched that area, and, you know, and it's just a matter of figuring it out, you know, because if anybody would get it, I think he would get it and understand what to do and how to do it the right way.
Yeah, I would like to see that, you know, especially because I think that there's so many, I mean, there could be a docu-series, there could be a documentary about, you know,
that's the end result, but just the, you know, there are things that I forget, you know, like.
They were taping too on the night Biggie was there too?
Yeah, all of that's on, you know, it exists, you know, like, we taped everything and I never threw anything away, you know, so there's moments that, you know, that are just like, oh, wow, I forget it. I see it, you know, like, we had the Fugees in Brooklyn at the Arc, and Busta comes out, and this is the Fugees with a band, and Lauren's just on point that night. She's freestyling. It's just all of this stuff that tells our story, and that's why I did Video Music Box, because I wanted to document the real deal. I didn't want somebody to say, oh, well, it used to be like this, or, you know, just some third person saying what they thought it was. I said, no, we can't make the same mistakes that artists made in the 80s and in the 70s. We have to have it documented so we can show it. You know, I don't give a damn if I have to have my own, you know, Video Music Box museums and we just play content, you know, forever, you know, because I think that that's what's going to affect young people now.
Sure.
They're going to see something in it. They may not see what we saw, but they see something, you know, that it's going to affect them in some way. It's like I told Steve Stout the same thing. I said, look, you know, young people need to see all of this, so they're going to take out what they want to take out of it, and they're going to move with it, you know, and make it happen. And they're going to realize that we're not that much different than each other. You know, it's like, you know, Kodak Black says things about, you know, old school, and I get it. You know, sometimes, you know, people come at you and they come out with the wrong energy. And if you're young and you're doing your thing and you're in your world, like, I'm big in my world, dude, why are you dissing me, you know, or looking at me some type of way? And I get it. But I think that we have to show it to each other, what the young people are doing and what what we've done in the past, so that everybody realizes it's the same thing. It's all the same energy. It's just a different time right now. It's 30 years later or 40 years later, whatever it is. What I went to this thing the other day, it was 46 years of hip hop, they said. I said, okay, that's a long time. You know, we're coming up on 50 years of hip hop. You know, like, what are we doing? You know, like, what is this? You know, so I think that's why I documented all this stuff. I wanted to make sure that, you know, if somebody goes to me and says, yo, do you have this? I go, yeah, I got it. You know, and I know I got it right off the top of my head, you know, and you know, even artists from LA, like, I found this interview I did with the Far Side when they first came out, and I didn't even remember interviewing the Far Side. I was like, what?
You know, it reminds me too. You think about, like, even like, I remember a while I had Bill Adler here a while ago.
Yeah, Bill is dope.
And he was talking about how all these pictures he had, and people were calling him left and right, like, yo, if you're looking for these pictures from back then, you know, you got to look. And you think about the video, you think about, and this before then, you know.
And you know what too is like photos, like, you know, people mention, you know, like, oh, these are the top photographers of, you know, back in the day, you know, and I'm like, yeah, but, you know, I was taking visuals, man. I was the only video camera in these places for a long time. So, I mean, nothing against what these guys were doing with the photos, but I can show you a whole 5 minutes of a moment, you know, where they might have that one moment.
Sure.
You know, I can tell you exactly what happened before and after. And I think that the video version, the visuals are kind of forgotten about. That pisses me off sometimes, because people leave us out of the conversation with that, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, what about this person? That? I'm like, all right, cool. I believe me, I was right alongside those people, you know, taking pictures, and they were taking photos, and I was doing video. So I know, but, you know, give the video guy some props, man.
Man, the video guy, the video guy is all that matters, you know. We spoke about the Wu-Tang docuseries that you're working on.
Man. It's out. It's already done. It's coming out.
They announced it. I remember they announced it recently.
In May, Showtime. Yeah.
And you know, we also spoke about possible, you know, who knows, maybe we could see where a lot of this archive could end up on Instagram. And you fuck with Twitter still?
Yeah. Video Music Box. Video Music Box. Yeah.
You know, what about what's it called? Any you know, how's Tuffy doing, man?
Tuffy's cool. Tuffy, for people that don't know, Tuffy was also a host on Video Music Box. In fact, he's the one who did the first Nas interview. If you find the first Nas interview, it's Tuffy interviewing him. And I sent Tuffy up to the Bronx. It was called they called it the FIFA, but it was really the Devil's Nest in the Bronx, and Nas was performing. And Tuffy did the interview. So Tuffy's a casting director. He works on a lot of cool stuff. He's working on something now. Something real big that he's doing here in New York, and so he's active. He's out there, and he's still doing his thing, man. You know, and that's that. I'm glad to see Tuffy doing his thing. He's raising his daughter. He's a good guy.
Yeah, no, I like seeing that. You know, I see that. You know, certain people, you know, you could tell the purity in them, man. So it's it's good to see that. You know, even as we wind this episode down, you know, you still speak to Kane, man?
Big Daddy?
Yeah.
In fact, we have an event coming up. And Kane is, you know, another guy, like, you know, he's always been, you know, open to do whatever and try different things. We did some events in Brooklyn a couple of years ago where, you know, he was trying this thing out with the band, and I said, let's do the band. And, you know, and so we had him set up on Fulton Street, and the band played, and, you know, and he did all his songs with the band. And then we do, you know, whatever. Like, it's weird. We did some political event. You know, this is how you know hip hop is all over the place. And it was some, like, you know, caucus, Democratic caucus, and it was Big Daddy Kane, Keith Sweat were the artists performing, you know, and I was hosting, and I was DJing too, and, you know, and I was like, hip hop is everywhere, man. Like, you know,
It is.
everywhere.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
It's taking people worldwide, man.
Yeah.
You know, not to go all the way back because, you know, we'll wind this episode down, but did you like your voice in the beginning? Like when you were on, you know, TV and, you know, because it wasn't like you know, like you created, you know, the lane too. It wasn't like you were like, like went to school for this forever. You know what I mean?
Well, I grew up listening to you guys. I listened to, you know, radio, and Don Cornelius was a big, you know, influence on me. Listening to him, Dick Clark, because he was just knowledgeable about so many things, you know, and I liked the way his approach to. He was kind of matter of fact with artists, and he would sit in the crowd with the you know, with the guests and people, and I was like, you know, so those were influence on me. And then there was a guy named Hank Spann on a radio station here in New York called WWRL. This is AM. This is before music was on FM. And this guy, Hank Spann, he could talk. You know, he was smooth. He was slick. It was like you talking to a pimp or something, you know. And now him and the younger version of who I really related to was a guy named Gary Bird. And Gary Bird used to have this show on the same radio station. It was called the GBE Experience, the Gary Bird Experience. And he would come on late night, like from 12 to 6 in the morning. And, you know, and he would play different music that they wouldn't play in the daytime. Like he was a little bit more progressive. He could play different stuff. And then he would talk about, you know, things that were happening in the community, like, you know, whatever, police brutality and things that you would never talk about in the daytime, you know, but he would talk about it at night. And that was a big influence on me because he was so smooth with it. And the songs that he played were like younger artists. Like he would break young music at night, you know. So, you know, I'm really showing my age, but like Kool and the Gang, you know, like your first time you hear that Summer Madness is Gary Bird plays it. And it's like, this is a new song from Kool and the Gang. Summer Madness, like, you know, I'm like, what is this? You know, like, what is this right here?
I met one of them. I was in Atlanta actually seeing Nat Robinson and Kendall Minter.
Oh, Kendall, yeah.
The lawyer,
Yeah, I know
the entertainment lawyer. And he was in there. He was like, you know, and the reason I know Kool and the Gang is because my mother's name is Joanna.
Oh, wow.
And they used to have that song, Joanna.
Oh, yeah.
I love
Right,
you.
that was a pop record for them.
Yeah, so, you know.
They're 50 years in the game. You know, they started off, they were like Muslims. They weren't like Muslims. They were Muslims back in the days from Newark. You know, Newark was like gangster, you know, at the time. And these dudes were like, you know, talking street talk, you know, in their records. They were musicians. A lot of it was like a lot of instrumental stuff. But when they would talk, they was dropping mad knowledge. Like, it's almost like Wu-Tang to the R&B world. Like, people probably like, what is this? You know, because it was jazz and they were talking, you know, street talk slang, you know. And then they became this big pop group later on, Joanna and, you know, Get Down on It and Ladies Night and all that. But that's not how they started. They was these young dudes really like, almost like, I feel like they like were hip hop, you know.
You know, one more thing you did was with MC Shan. And that's when I really, like, for me, you know, in my age group, I remember that's when I really, what I loved about hip hop was, and one of my first, like, you know, Love's Gonna Get You by KRS was something that really stuck with me, man. Like when he said, I make it about a G a week, fuck school.
Right.
Like, I really believed him.
Yeah.
I left. I walked out of school. I said, I'll be back in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And that, but MC Shan left me lonely was the first time I realized about having feelings in hip hop.
Yeah, that was Lionel, man. And well, of course, it was Shan. Shan made this song. And that was the first video that Cold Chillin' did. That was the first video that they did. And, well, Shantae was really the first video that they did. And they realized, you know, Fly Ty was like, wow, this is really happening. Magic is, they're all part of this whole scene. And they came back with Shan. You know, The Bridge is out.
Yeah.
And Kill That Noise and all that stuff was out already, but there was no video for that. And then we gotta do a video for Shan because Shan's, you know, he's out there. People know who he is. People want to see him. And they came with Left Me Lonely. And, you know, and I was surprised, you know, because, you know, I didn't expect that was going to be, you know, the song because, you know, I'm thinking Shan battling KRS-One, you know, hardcore, and it was a love song. But it was so dope that it was new, you know, and it felt like, you know, like I can relate to this. And then Lionel came up with a concept that, you know, Shan was crazy, you know, and he's in an insane asylum and he's having, you know, all these delusional thoughts about this girl. And I was like, okay, you know, Lionel was like that, you know, Lionel just come up with something that nobody else was thinking about. And then we shot the video and people loved it. Loved it. Lionel's a dude that grew up, he just, he's a comic book head,
Yeah.
he was different, I used to be like, you got all your comic books like lined up like perfectly, like who does that? And he was like, a lot of people do. I was like, really?
Is he still doing?
Yeah, he's in LA. He's still working, he's still active, he's still doing stuff. And he's, sometimes when I have conversations with Lionel, I'm like, the world is unfortunately very superficial right now, and we just look over things and we don't see things. And he's like, well, why? And he was a detail guy when I met him. He's a detail guy now. He pays attention to everything and wants to give everybody the props that they should get. And he's like, well, they didn't really tell that story right, or they didn't write that article right. And I'm like, I know, but it's, thank God they wrote something. Now we can maybe do a part 2 or something to it, so.
So listen, internet, let me tell you something. Look up on YouTube or go to video. Where can people go if they're, like, say, out of state or in state? If they don't have, where can they check out Video Music Box?
They can watch Video Music Box. Well, you can see some of the clips on my YouTube, Video Music Box 1. I post up every once in a while. Now, Instagram, people want me to post more stuff up on IGTV because it's a little longer. And so I may start putting more clips up on IGTV. But, just Google Video Music Box, hashtag Ralph McDaniels, whatever it is, and and some cool stuff will come up, and you'll be like, oh, wow.
A lot of years of stuff.
A lot of years.
Listen, Ralph, thank you, man. Thank you.
Years.
Not only for doing an episode, but just it's all love. Just the contributions.
Thank you.
I mean, so it's appreciated. Like I said, I grew up with it, love it. Love all the contributions, and that you're still here today.
I still got young eyes. I think I still have young ears. I look at things, I'm like, I'm mad old, but I don't look at it like that. I still see it young, and I think that's, and I appreciate that in you. Like I look at that in people. Like I see something in you, Pete, that it's me. So if Pete, you ever ask me for whatever I can do, I'm like, yeah, of course, it's Pete. I think it's sincere, and it's, you are who you are. You're not trying to be somebody else. I don't know. Your boys might tell me something different later on. But as far as I know, and that we don't have that in the business. And, there's so many, especially with, the fakeness of internet stuff. And, it's like people just making up shit. And I'm like, all right, I guess that's the world we live in. So to have a real, sincere talk with somebody, or you can tell when somebody asks you something, they really are asking you for real. That's cool.
Well, listen, the box that rocks.
Yes, sir.
Will never stop. The one and only, the legendary Ralph McDaniels.
Yeah.
Peace out. CHEA. Internets, if you enjoyed that episode, then hit me up. That's right. Email me at thepremiumpeteshow@gmail.com. Again, that's thepremiumpeteshow@gmail.com. If you're an advertiser, any big company, small company, startup, whatever it is, you want to advertise on the Premium Peep Show, hit me up. Email thepremiumpeteshow@gmail.com, and we'll get to working, okay? And if you have a suggestion or you want to hear a certain guest on the show, whatever it is, okay? You could at Premium Pete Show on Twitter or Instagram, or for the last time I'll tell you, well, I'm not gonna. It's not the last time. Email me. thepremiumpeteshow@gmail.com, and let's get to working. CHEA.